Liverpool is a double bomb. Liverpool have been called upon to make a surprise double move for Chelsea stars N'Golo Kanté and Mason Mount. The Reds have had a bleak start to the Premier League season and are already 15 points behind leaders Arsenal. There are great expectations in the next summer transfer season, but the race to finish the league in the top 4, which is important for the names to be transferred, still continues. Putting up a bumpy graphic, Liverpool has managed to recover relatively in recent weeks. As we have told you in the last 2 days, Liverpool are closely following Mason Mount's contract. Liverpool are said to be following Mount along with Juventus, as the attacker has only 18 months left on his Blues contract and has yet to get the new terms from pen to paper. Chelsea do not want to lose the England national team player who played 181 games for them and became a star when they beat Manchester City in the 2021 Champions League final. However, they may want to sell the 23-year-old right now if they think they can lose him for free in 2024. But there is another star at Chelsea, similar to Mason Mount's situation. Kanté, who has been the star of the Premier League since 2015 and won the championship with Leicester and Chelsea. Especially his debut with Leicester made him one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, and he has been shown as one of the best midfielders of recent years with his effective performance in Chelsea. But he's had a string of injury issues over the past few years and hasn't had the impact he wanted at Stamford Bridge lately. And the 31-year-old will be free to leave West London next summer if he doesn't extend his current deal. Liverpool are in desperate need of reinforcements after a weak start to the campaign. It is obvious that reinforcements are necessary, especially in the midfield. The Reds attracted attention with Arthur Melo's move on the last day of the transfer season, despite Klopp's unequivocal rejection at the beginning of the season. However, the Brazilian player, who has not played for a long time, had to train hard to improve his condition and suffered a long injury just before he was ready. Klopp has had to deal with a pool of injured players and now a move is scheduled for January. It's natural for the Reds to be interested in names like Mason Mount and Kanté, because they want to use the advantage of transferring the stars who are nearing the end of their contracts at a discounted price. And former Premier League goalkeeper Brad Friedel thinks the Reds should sign the Blues duo. Mason Mount would do very well for Liverpool, said Friedel. It would be wise for Jürgen Klopp if it works for both clubs. Mount is an outstanding player and has the skills to do well for Klopp. The player has to want to make a move and it's true that Klopp wanted him. He's a very good player and would be good for Liverpool for a lot of things. At Kanté, he could be a great free option for Liverpool, a pretty reasonable target if they don't get a deal for Jude Bellingham or Frenkie de Jong. If a player like N'Golo Kanté gets free, he'll have to play. Kanté is really good. Some injury of course he had his problems, but he was extraordinary. Klopp knows better than I do, but I think Kanté would be a very interested club and would be an incredible signing for any of them, he said. It is obvious that everyone in the universe knows that Liverpool's main target is Jude Bellingham. However, it is known that the British player has a high price tag. Its price is likely to rise even higher, especially given the world giants that are interested in the player. It makes sense for Liverpool to turn to free transfers like Kanté. A free Kanté transfer would be a great move if a large portion of the transfer budget is going to go to Jude Bellingham. Because there are more than one name to leave Liverpool midfield and this gap cannot be closed by only transferring Jude Bellingham. Although Mason Mount is a more difficult move, Kanté may be finished sooner. However, the player's injury problems will leave a question mark in the minds. The Reds need to scrutinize injury reports. Do you think Kanté and Mount are the right moves for Liverpool? Michael Edwards' Liverpool transfer failure is about to be confirmed as PSG's move is debated. On Thursday, it was confirmed that Liverpool midfielder Curtis Jones has put pen to paper for a new long-term contract with the club. Crucially, the Reds have tied Jones, while 3 of his positional peers, James Milner, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Naby Keita, are in the final years of their contracts. Milner signed a 1-year deal on discounted terms last June, so his exit shouldn't come as a surprise. With injury-stricken Oxlade-Chamberlain often struggling to persuade while on the pitch, Keita's chances of making a new deal seemed the best. However, it seems that an extension for Guinea is not on the horizon. According to information reported this week, Southampton is ready to follow Oxlade-Chamberlain through the door. Meanwhile, it was rumored that Keita had possible pre-contract talks with Paris Saint-Germain and Juventus in the new year. It seems how we should think of his performance as Keita's time at Liverpool comes to an end ultimately. Everything must be placed in the context of his lofty £52.2 million price tag. According to Transfermarkt, this makes him the fourth most expensive signing in club history, behind Virgil van Dijk, Darwin Nunez and Alisson, but ahead of names like Luis Diaz, Fabinho, Diogo Jota, Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane and Roberto Firmino. Keita is the featured player on this list, but for the wrong reasons. The jury is still on Nunez and to some extent Diaz, but all the other players mentioned were hits for Liverpool, but Keita remained a huge disappointment. Recall, the Reds were so desperate to sign Keita that Michael Edwards agreed to a deal a year in advance after lengthy negotiations with Leipzig and briefly left Germany for a club record fee. He didn't necessarily look like a game changer on the court like a few other players in the top four. However, it was very good at times, especially in the second half of last season. Keita excelled in a more withdrawn midfielder role and eventually found some rhythm. He's played a respectable 40 games, his highest single-season tally. He started against Manchester City in the FA Cup semi-finals and Chelsea in the final, putting strong performances in both games as the Reds lifted the trophy. The first half of the 2022-2023 season brought irresistible momentum in pursuit of a new contract. But then things turned upside down. Keita took 5 minutes in the fight when he started as a backup in the Community Shield at the end of July and has not been seen since. He took part in the Premier League matchday squad against Crystal Palace. This was the only time he was on the 20-man roster this season, but he couldn't find the time. Injuries are the biggest reason Keita won't get a new deal. Injuries suffered by the Guinean player are the reason why this signature is considered a failure in the final analysis. He has played 166 Premier League games since arriving, and only started 46 of them. Meanwhile, he started 14 of the 50 matches in the Champions League. Keita definitely had her moments, as we just mentioned. But the now 27-year-old looks like he'll be slipping through the back door at Anfield at the height of his career with little fanfare, and for a player who needs to take the Premier League by storm, that will definitely feel like a pure failure. Liverpool's recruiting team, for its part, can look back and learn from a rare miscalculation. Honestly, it would be pretty heartbreaking to pay him that much and lose him for free at the end of this season. However, the club is doing its best to dispose of him during the January transfer season and receive a transfer fee, albeit at a discount. At the beginning of the season, allegations were raised that the Guinean star was waiting for guaranteed periods from Klopp to extend his contract. However, at this point, it is clear that Klopp is not among his plans.